I'm Scott L. Miller. It is the 1st of May, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in León, Nicaragua. And today I was all set up, did an entire interview with Kim to tell you about her trip here to Nicaragua. And my GoPro completely failed. So instead, today we're going to be answering viewer questions of all sorts. We'll get to it right after the bump. I can't tell you how disappointed I am that my GoPro 11 absolutely died. I took this great video of Vaca, the hotel dog, Saeed's dog, who's so sweet, at the hotel, and there's great audio. And immediately after we did the interview, I took a video of the beach, and there's great audio. But we did this interview, and there's no settings change in between. All I did was, stop recording, record the interview, and then go to the next thing. And this one video has absolutely no audio. It's not quiet, it's nothing like that. It didn't record the audio. I've never had the GoPro fail in that way. Those who watch the show know that from time to time it selects the wrong mic, and so you get the wrong audio, and it doesn't give any feedback on screen about that stuff. So that's a big negative on GoPro, and there's plenty of space. I'm looking at the screen. There's exactly spots where I want to see this data, and they just don't show it. And a lot of people have complained about why they haven't done a firmware update to show us what we need to know on the camera, but that there's no audio at all is never something I've had happen. So in some ways I can't really complain that it's such an infrequent thing that, well, it's gonna happen sometimes, but that they could have showed it on the screen and just don't bother. And that it happened to be the one time I'm doing an interview. I never get to do interviews. I was so excited, and all week I've been trying to make this happen, and it was scrambling to do it at the last second before she left. And we did this whole interview, and it went really well, and it turned out, I thought, really great. So I can show it to you. And so this is Kim and I talking at the Simple Beach where she stayed for this past week. And actually she left on May 5th. So this is recorded in the future, but it's about her time now. And she really enjoyed it. So this is her first time. I'm just gonna show the interview and tell you about what we talked about. But she came down as a kind of last minute thing, very little planning. She's never really traveled abroad. She's been to England and traveled the US some, but never been anywhere that like speaks another language, no place exotic, no place. This is like a really big leap. And she didn't know a lot about Nicaragua. And a few weeks ago, probably a little bit over a month ago, we hadn't talked in a long time, and she popped up on my Telegram as having joined. I'm like, oh hey, what's going on? We're in Nicaragua now, and she's like, wow. And I'm like, you need to come visit. She's like, okay, booking now. I'm like, what? Okay. And so she booked and came down for about a week and stayed at the hotel, really looking for a beach vacation, looking for something really chill, and that's what she did here. And at first, she was very apprehensive. And she says all this in the video, right? Like, you can kind of see her saying it. She's very apprehensive about coming down because she didn't know what she was going to do. She didn't know what she was going to find in a foreign country. She doesn't speak Spanish. She did Duolingo for like 9 days before coming down. Even when she first got here, she was like, wow, this is a bit much. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it. And really quickly, she made all these friends on the beach and started hanging out with them and had like her own crowd and actually was very busy the whole time she was here. She went surfing and managed to get up a few times. Very hard, but she enjoyed that. She basically stayed on the beach, did a little bit in León. We went out and did a few things, went dancing, which I got a little bit of video of. We had a really nice time, what little bit we got to hang out. But by the end, she said she was on the verge of tearing up. She really didn't want to leave Nicaragua. She wanted to be able to stay. She's looking forward to getting home because she has a grandbaby on the way. She has her dogs that she wants to go see, but she is really seriously considering. One, she's just planning on a return trip relatively soon, not in weeks or months, but as her next vacation, she's really thinking about just coming right back down and exploring more of the country because she spent the time on the beach and she really, she's glad she did. She didn't want to go out and do a bunch of different things. She wanted to be able to relax and just have this very chill vacation. which is exactly what she did, and it worked out very well. And but now she really wants to see Laguna de Apoyo. She would like to see Granada. She wants to see Ometepe. She's got like a list of things that she's starting to assemble that she wants to make time for and plan for next time. And this time she really had no plan. She didn't know what to expect. And that's a big thing for people coming any new country, right? When you first get there, everything's a learning curve. It doesn't matter how many things you put on a list that you want to see. You make your bucket list for that location. Once you get there, there's so many times that you're like, oh, you know what? I really enjoy sitting in this coffee shop and watching people, and I didn't even think about that. I didn't know about it, but that's what I want to do some of my time. I got to build that in. So she's done that. Now she is prepared to make a bucket list for next time, and she's really looking forward to coming back, but she's very seriously considering what it would take for her to make the move down and base her life here. She's in a position where that's potentially on the radar, and so that's something that may come up. She's very excited about that possibility, and coming here and seeing how beautiful it is and how relaxed life is and how great the weather is really opens your eyes to these opportunities, to these possibilities. It's so much more affordable. It's so safe. It's so friendly. It's so welcoming. It's so easy to live here that she's really excited about what that could mean for her. So that was a really good interview, and thank you, Kim, for doing it. And I'm so sorry that the camera died and didn't work on that. Really makes me. I've been thinking about getting a Sony ZV-1, which is an older but a vlogging camera. It has a lot more options and control for those kinds of things. A little bit bigger. The GoPro is very handy for just carrying around, but it is nice to have multiple things with a little bit more just options and control, but we'll see about that. So that was the interview, and she's off and heading back to the United States now, and I really apologize for my sound. I slept weird and I have a blockage in my throat, but I'm fine. And we're gonna get on to those viewer questions right after this. All right, we're in the office doing this. I'm actually waiting for a meeting to start, so I'm watching my screen doing this all at the same time. All right, so our first question, and this kind of echoes yesterday, how necessary is a car for living in a Nicaragua suburb? Not completely, because there is public transportation, but it's going to be a lot more effort if you live in a suburb than if you live in the city. You will probably want a car, but it is not necessary. So it's a very in-between. I lived in a suburb with a car, but I wasn't driving for a while, and it is a little bit painful. You do appreciate it, but you can get taxis, you can get buses. It's definitely doable, and lots of Nicaraguans do live in suburbs without cars, but most Nicaraguans who live in suburbs do not go far afield to go out. They go to their local bars, they go to their local restaurants, their local markets, things that extranjeros most likely are going to go farther for a grocery store, farther for a restaurant or bar that they like somewhere else. So be aware, maybe that's not you, but most extranjeros when they move here tend to go farther than Nicaraguans do for the same activities. What would be involved, costs and general paperwork for a foreigner on a tourist visa to get and maintain a car in Nicaragua? You cannot. As a tourist, you can't have a car. So the thing that's going to come up is either you're going to have to form a corporation and have that corporation hold a car, completely doable, and tons of people do that, or you're going to have to find a Nicaraguan that you trust enough to put a car in their name that you're paying for. That's a big leap. Some people do that. Some people do that and get burned. You take your chances as you would anywhere. Would you in the United States or in Canada? Would you be like, oh, I'm not allowed to own a car, but I'm allowed to have my friend own a car that I can drive. I'll just pay for it, but it's completely in their name and I have no recourse if they take off with my car. You might, but it's probably someone you've known for a long time, so consider that. If it's a family member, if it's someone really, really close to you that you absolutely trust, sure. If you're just moving here blindly and you don't know anyone, no. I've been watching your older videos, but I haven't found such a video. Yeah, I haven't dealt with this too much. I've mentioned it a little bit, and having a car is, it's a difficult decision, for sure, and I tend to lean. When you first get here, learn to do the public transportation. Driving is a headache. Maintaining a car is a headache. The legalities of buying the car can be a headache until you have residency, which also entails time. Once you have residency, getting a car is very simple. Once you've been here for any length of time, everyone has the resources to get a car, not a big deal. So those things will change pretty quickly for you. Give it a little bit of time and assess your car needs. Just in general, make sure you live in a place where there is public transportation, which is very easy. Almost everywhere has public transportation, and then make your decisions from there. I recently mentioned that Nicaragua houses are basically used for sleeping and eating, with people going out much more frequently than in the US. What type of nightlife is available in the smaller cities in Nicaragua, such as Matagalpa? Okay, so I have to answer this two ways. One, smaller cities, and another, Matagalpa. It is important to note, Matagalpa is city number 3 in Nicaragua. Managua is number 1 at 1.3 million, and Leon is number 2 at 300,000, and people generally look at Matagalpa as number 3 at about 250,000. That is still a good-sized city, and when you're in Matagalpa, you will feel like a city. Importantly, Matagalpa feels much more like a city, and I mean it, much more than Leon. Leon is colonial, and Managua had the earthquake. So both Managua and Leon have an extremely strong village feel, even though they're extremely large. Matagalpa has not had those things. It is an older, very dense city and has high rises, not super high, but taller buildings than the other cities, and very dense population. And it has a sprawling outer zone. So the complete metro of Matagalpa is actually about 500,000, whereas Leon ends at the city limits and remains about 300,000. So Matagalpa, while technically a smaller city, feels and acts like a bigger city than Leon, and in some ways bigger than Managua because it gets denser. But overall, these are not small cities. So Matagalpa has the same nightlife options as Leon, generally the same as Managua. So here you have everything. You have constant karaoke, bars, live music, those things in huge numbers, clubs, fancy things, cheap things, everything mixed together, lots of festivals, always something to do, always lots of nightlife. So Matagalpa is on the upper end of that. I would put it almost at Leon. Leon is a university town, so we get an extreme level of activity compared to a normal city of our same size, way more than like a tourist city like Granada. I think both Matagalpa and Leon have a bit more than other relatively good cities for nightlife, like Esteli. There are other cities that definitely drop off a lot, like Jinotega. You're going to get a relatively quiet nightlife by comparison. Now, smaller cities, what we would generally consider a smaller city would be something like an El Viejo, Daguerrote, La Paz Centro, Jinotepe, Didiambra, those places which are much smaller, much more like 30 to 80,000 people in their metros. Those are going to be a little bit more difficult for nightlife. But even there, you're going to find that the range of options remains awfully similar to what you get in the bigger cities. Now, Managua is special. Managua has full theater troupes and laser tag and paintball and all kinds of things that you simply won't get under normal circumstances in the other cities. You might get it once in a while, right? One city has laser tag, one city has paintball, I don't know. But those things exist, but they're rare. But in Managua, you can do absolutely anything. In a Nagarrote, for example, you still have a large variety of restaurants, obviously not the same as a city, but you have many different places to go. You have the barrio bars, the local bars, those are everywhere. You're never going to get away from those, even in the smallest little village, they will have them. Even on open countryside drives, you will find the barrio bars. Nightclubs are going to exist in almost every city. Anything that qualifies as a city and most really large villages will have some level of nightclub. Now, of course, they get pretty small. But even Las Piñas, now it's a beach, so you get more for smaller. But even in Las Piñas, which is extremely small, about 3,000 people, they have a really nice barrio bar that is lively all night. They have some barrio bars that are very quiet but do exist most nights. And they have at least one night a week a discotheque nightclub where it is packed and you can go out and dance with all the locals. And I mean, it's wall-to-wall people. And like everyone who works in town goes there. Right? And when the economy was better, they ran like 5 nights a week. Now it's 1, but it's going to come back. So most of the small towns, you're going to get that stuff. People go out, so you will have the opportunity to go out for sure. Live music will also be common. It'll definitely drop off a lot in the smaller towns, but it will still exist. You won't get the big bands, you won't get the top line talent that you get in the cities, but you will still get very fun local music, classic rock, that kind of stuff playing live. Probably only one place in a smaller city on any given night, probably not 7 nights a week, but you will have those opportunities to do those things. So there's pretty much always something to do. And really, if you compare that to like the United States, what do you actually do? This is one of those questions that I find very difficult, because when I'm like, well, when I lived in the US, I never went out. And when I did, I went to a bar or saw music, or like, what did I do? I do all the same things here in just higher quantities or higher frequency. I just do it much more often. So I think for most people, activities are going to be there. Now, when you talk to Alan, things he really liked doing is going to like car and boat shows. Those things don't exist here. You're not going to find big vendor events where they're selling things. You're not going to find big organized conferences. Most of that doesn't exist. But most of the small towns here, all towns, cities too, have festivals. So many times a year, you will have either just a local festival where people are doing something, the church is putting something on, or of any size, like in Nagoroti, La Paz Centro, they are constantly having official central government organized activities where like the Ministry of Tourism is putting it up on their Twitter feed and saying, come to this city for this activity on this day, and they'll put on a festival of some sort, and they'll bring in shows, and they really keep that kind of stuff going all the time. And of course, all of these cities of any size, they always have parks, they always have playgrounds, all of that stuff is there. There's generally outdoor activities that you can do, but they're not very organized. It's not like you're going to have like, oh, the city park or the country park where you can go walk in nature. And it's not like that, but there's lots of places to go walking just because there's a lot of open land. And so if you want to go, walk on a road somewhere or find some fields to go walk in, once you get to know an area, you generally have a fair number of options to get out and do stuff. And of course, public transportation is good. If you have a car, you can go do things almost anywhere. So that is for Curio Bill. I hope that answered your questions. For anyone who has, want me to expand on that or have additional, just hop down in those comments. I love answering the questions, and it helps on days where I don't have a specific topic, or my audio doesn't work, or I'm waiting for a meeting and I'm stuck at my desk and have no way to do anything else. Perfect. All right, had to go to some artificial light because the sun went down and it's been such a busy day that just had to. All right, John Sebastian Morin, love your videos. Great combination of authenticity, detailed information, and energy. Particularly enjoying comparison of living downtown versus outskirts in terms of electricity cost, or the video that you did a while back after your move broaching the centro versus suburbs subject in a general fashion. A related topic that I'm interested in is getting your taking on a car or not and how it relates to where you end up living, which we kind of already covered, but we're at the early stages of looking at locations in the area that might work for us, but the car or no car decision seems to be a big one in terms of impacting where you can live. We're also considering village or country living, but not sure what it would take if that would make a car necessary. Thank you. From the tone, I think they really don't want a car, but they want to live in the country. I think that's what they're trying to get at here. So I think it's important to remember that, yes, it is true. Where you determine you want to live, where you find a house or an apartment, is going to have a huge impact on whether or not you need a car. Or having a car will make a huge impact on which places you can choose, certainly. And I said this before, if you're looking at a farm, you're going to need a vehicle, right? Like that's just part of farm life. But if you are looking at, for example, in the area where I am, so I live on the Ponaloya Road, which is west of Leon, and gets pretty darn rural, right? Like really, really out in the country. You can go long stretches where you have very few houses and you're definitely not a village, and there's tiny little villages. And I know there's a place for sale out there, not that you're looking to buy, but like out on the road, there's lots of places advertising. Some of them are like expat places. Some of them are not, are very local, and some fall into kind of a middle ground. And out there, you have absolutely great options for public transportation. The bus comes by, as do taxis all the time. This does not apply to every rural road, right? So you need to do some research exactly where you are interested in. But if you wanted to get a farmhouse on the Ponaloya Road, or a farm area house, just a small house in a farming area, and you go out and you say, wow, there's nothing around here, we will be so isolated. All you need to do is have an idea of the bus schedule and have a few taxi phone numbers for when things come up. But you're in between the city and the beach in that particular case. And so there's taxis every few minutes, buses every 15 minutes, and some other transports that come by. Plus, if you had to, you can walk places. You could bicycle, you could scooter. You have a range of options to approach the issue, but public transportation does exist for you there. And taxis would not be a big deal in those situations where you really needed one. I don't know how far out food delivery goes. It may not go out that far, or maybe you have to pay a premium. But that may be an option as well. It's the kind of thing where, yes, the car factor is important, But it's not as simple as I'm in the country, therefore I need a car. In the United States, you would say, yeah, I mean, you can't live on a farm and not have a car. That'd be crazy. But here in Nicaragua, you absolutely can. And as if you go out there, if you take the road from Leon to Matagalpa, go look at a map, look at this huge stretch of road, not highway, just kind of road. Between them, that is several hours of very, very rural, just tiny little villages sprinkled along. And yet, the buses go out there regularly, maybe every 30, 45 minutes, and people will just be on the side of the road. They'll flag down a bus and get on it. You can, if you're on a bus, you just say, oh, this is my house coming up here, and they drop you right off in front of your house. The public transportation here takes a lot more to learn. It's much less intuitive, it's much less natural, and isn't like posted schedules everywhere. But once you learn it, for an area, you only need one or two like bits of information for your particular place that you're gonna live. Once you know that, it's amazing how many places actually do have good public transportation. Because remember, except for people who own like ranches, the average person doesn't own a car no matter what situation they're in. So the Nicaraguans, wherever you're looking to be, have people who need public transportation. So chances are there's some way to do it in almost any location you're going to look at. If you do look at a location where there's no Nicaraguans living, you're probably out of luck. But the public transportation system really does cover the majority of populated Nicaragua. All right, while we're going through all these questions, I'm just gonna throw up that Javier put up this. All these questions and requests cost you a good bit to explore and saves us immense time and money spinning our wheels when in Nicaragua. This is the reason everyone should and must send a coffee or carafe once in a while. Your feet and sometimes foot on the ground for us means a lot. So just a quick reminder that you can sponsor this channel to help all of this, because obviously I have no sponsors, that would be cool, with coffee. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. I'm gonna throw a link up here, and that is a way to send your thanks directly, comes straight to me and helps fund the channel. And of course, like and subscribe and that stuff. And we're gonna go on to the next question. Thank you, Javier. It's a great reminder that that stuff really does help. It's amazing, and you guys are so great. You guys send so much that it's made it possible to get the new camera that no one's guessed at yet. So I feel like there's cool stuff coming, trust me. But I've been so busy with work. I just have to say for a second, this week has been work terrible, which is why I'm recording at night again, and I haven't been able to do a lot of fun stuff with you guys. I was so excited after doing the drive this week that I was gonna have some free time, and it has been absolutely awful, and I'm gonna be working all through the weekend. Like, I get no free time this week. So very much struggling to do any episodes or anything. So thank you for everyone who's supporting and helping out and make this all possible, because it's been a rough one. But that'll be great. We're gonna do cool stuff really soon and get driving some places and exploring, so looking forward to that. All right, and our last question, a little bit different on this one for today's video from the Nicaragua 1980. I'm a military retiree, I assume United States, 100% VA disabled veteran. Those are US terms, so I'm pretty sure. Best steps to retire in Nicaragua, thank you. All right, awesome, great question. And I mean, it's tough, right? The answer is generally just get down here, like seriously. Now, of course, the important part here is the 100% disabled. So this matters. In the United States, I assume that means you have free healthcare and that it's terrible. So those are important factors. Not just that it's bad because it's American, but because it's VA, no one gets treated worse in the US. So that makes retiring abroad that much more valuable or important, right, to someone who's stuck on VA medical systems in the US. So that may be, now of course, coming to Nicaragua or any place like this, you're gonna have to pay for your own healthcare, but generally that's still gonna be cheaper than doing it in the US, and you'll have control over it. That's something that will be so different compared to even normal healthcare, let alone the VA, where getting control over your healthcare, where getting a say in it is something that's generally out of your reach. So that's potentially a big deal. However, I don't know what your disability is. That's going to be your first step, is analyzing your own disability, whatever that is. I mean, maybe it's like really minor and you're like, oh, great, it doesn't affect me at all. But if it's something really serious, you're going to want to look at what medical care you're going to need. Is it acute cardiac care? Is it, who knows, right? You look at these things and then determine where, if anywhere, in Nicaragua is able to adequately meet your needs for that. And in many cases, if you have more severe medical needs, you're going to need to be in or near Managua. Managua has all the big hospitals. Of course, we have hospitals everywhere. If you're having a heart attack, they're going to take you anywhere. But to find the doctors with all the specialties. Remember, we are a small country, and so everything's centered in Managua. People from all over the country go to Managua for acute healthcare. You've got several really good hospitals in Managua, so there's a really good chance you'll be able to find whatever you need. If you come to someplace like León, where I live, you're going to have an old hospital right now, a private hospital that's pretty good but pretty small. We have a brand new hospital that isn't open yet. It'll probably have a lot of what you need when it opens, but for right now, it doesn't. Each city is going to have its own amount of healthcare. Those that are farther out, like here in León, we have a little bit more, but getting to Managua is a little bit harder. If you're in Granada, they have very little, but they're really close to Managua, so like 45 minutes. So in many cases, other than just keeping you from bleeding out, they're just going to take you to Managua for the really good care. It's kind of like living in the suburbs, right? Most of your good hospitals are in the city. So that kind of stuff is going to be your first step. You really need to consider what your healthcare and locations are. Then from afar, before you come here, right, do that first step, and that may only be a day, right? Determine where you want to look for living. And it doesn't mean you have to really pick, but you might be like, okay, so I have this radius around Managua. I need to be 30 minutes to a hospital, 60 minutes, 100 minutes, whatever. Find where that is. Then determine, do you want to look at city living, country living, suburban living, get a feel for that lifestyle. I really want to see the water, I really want to be in the mountains, get that stuff. Then once you have those things, like narrow where it's reasonable to consider, then the next step is literally coming down. Now, if you have children or dogs, you're going to have someone take care of them for a little while, right? Don't bring extended family. Don't bring pets on an exploratory mission. Bringing animals is very difficult. You can do it. We know people have done it. We've done it. But it's high risk and it's a lot of work and it's potential a lot of expense. And those are the things that make you trapped. If anything goes wrong, you can't just grab your dogs and walk over the border. You're gonna have to do something to get them out. That's potentially where you end up with problems. Staying without pets that you bring in. Obviously, I'm not saying leave your dogs behind. I'm just saying on your exploratory missions, don't make those kinds of commitments. Those are much bigger commitments coming into a place than you may not be able to return, right? So do an exploratory mission. Come down, spend a bit of time, rent a place for a month, 3 months, right? Spend weeks, do some grocery shopping, go find a doctor, go look at different houses, look at different neighborhoods, eat at different restaurants, figure out what nightlife you think you're going to like. I'm sure things will change, right? As you move to a new country, any new country, you're going to go through the stages of adaptation, where at some point you're going to swing back and forth. I'm going to try to find ways to do things I always did. Oh, I want to explore all the things that are local. Ooh, I miss the old ways. No, I really want to be a local, right? You're going to go through those things. And as you go through those stages, you will adapt. And you may find that you really want to find ways to maintain a traditional American lifestyle. You may find that you don't want to do that at all, and you really want to get steeped into local culture and activities. And you just want to go see the live music, and you want to go hang out at the bar, and you want to just do the things that we do with our Nicaraguan friends. And that may just be, so you got to figure out as best you can how that's going to fit into your lifestyle, and that will help you determine where you want to be. Once you do those things, now we're past the first steps, right? Once you're past that, it's literally looking for an apartment or house that's going to be your long-term. Doesn't have to be a commitment, right? 6 months to a year, but you want something that you can renew, someplace you can put down a little bit of roots, get to know some neighbors, know your local restaurants, start becoming part of a community. In most cases, that's what you're going to want. Maybe you want to travel, consider that, but you're probably going to want some amount of roots. Most people do. And as far as your other retirement needs, right? I'm assuming you have some amount of pension from the military and something else, right? You're a military retiree. You probably need to do nothing, right? You probably have enough income from that retirement that if you need to invest or you're going to do anything like that, it's purely because you want to. You want to find a way to have a little bit more cushion. You just think it's fun to run a business or to keep yourself busy, great. But that's probably where you're going to be. You're not going to be in a situation where you need any type of income. That income that you have, that pension that you have, will almost certainly count towards getting a pensioner's residency. You don't require that, but it's a nice option to have. So you'll just come down and be a tourist for the first, say, 1 to 2 years. That's standard. Get your feet wet, make sure this is for you, put down a little bit of roots, become comfortable, start doing your Duolingo Spanish, do that every day, and then you're probably all set. You don't need to deal with any banking. Don't do that. Just have a good bank in the US and use money from the ATM as you need it. Seriously, the ATM is fine. Like, that's all you need to do. There isn't some big prep you need to do. There isn't a big paper visa stuff. There isn't banking stuff. There isn't anything, right? Come down. That is literally the first step. Start exploring, make your decisions, then make the decision to move here, hopefully. And then after a while of living here, say a year, start saying, wow, this is it. We were right. This is where we want to be. I think residency will be smart for us. Does pensioners residency make the most sense? Obviously speak to your immigration lawyer, and then you can say, okay, we just have the pension, we want to do that. Or I want to invest and do it that way, because it needs maybe a little bit more flexibility. Or I know I'm going to invest anyway, so why not, right? Those kinds of things. But so much of the decision-making is just deciding you're going to make the move and making it happen. On the American side, if you have things, we all do, right? Start downsizing. If you're going to move out of the US, start downsizing now. Get rid of everything you can. Memorabilia, yeah, I understand. Keep some things, store it somewhere, find a family member that'll let you store some stuff there. Go way down to a shelf in their closet, whatever you can do to get as small as possible. Figure out what you need to move with, at least initially. And for us, it got us down to 11 pieces of luggage, which is a lot, but we're 5 people. 11 pieces of luggage and our dogs. And that's what we moved with. Everything else is in storage in the US. We're sad that we have as much in storage as we do. Over time, we're going to get that addressed. It's hard to fix that from a distance, but that is where we are. That is what we're doing. And the more you can downsize, the more you can sell things off. Take all that money and put it towards something, right? New furniture here, rent here, just invest it so you have more money to live on here, whatever. You're going to find that goes a long way. Eliminating your cost, eliminating your overhead in the US or wherever is going to be your first really big step once you're committed to moving somewhere. And just getting to Nicaragua and exploring is your first step in making Nicaragua happen. And don't forget to check on your medical care. Obviously, you need to make sure you have that available. If you can't get it here in Nicaragua, maybe it may be what is done in this region is a lot of times you simply fly somewhere. If it's not acute, if it's like, well, I need this treatment, but I could get it anytime in the next week, right? That's different. You would probably fly to Colombia or Mexico, someplace with big healthcare systems that are really world-class and excellent and giant, right? Nicaragua's not bad, it's small. So the amount of specialty care here is limited because it's the size of one city. And we're not surrounded by big countries, so you can't just run over the border and go to Tegucigalpa and expect to have some completely different healthcare system. It's not going to be that dramatically different. Guatemala is a bit bigger. They will have some things that we don't. But Mexico and Colombia are enormous countries with really big, deep bench healthcare systems that are some of the best in the world. Colombia especially is world renowned for being an epicenter of healthcare. So those things exist. That is how countries in this region handle it. The United States, right? You're used to 50 independent countries that come together as United States. And I've got to answer that. So like and subscribe, leave your comments below, and I will see all of you tomorrow.